On.
Okay.
Okay, so let's close this up a little bit here. Say hello.
Say hi. Hi,
Hey, everybody.
everybody.
Hey everybody, Bobby Umar here. Sorry I'm so late. Oh my gosh. We had major technical troubles, right, to try to get on for our LinkedIn Lives, but we are now here.
Yes.
And we are very excited. And so now I'm going to use my laptop. We're going to use my phone and this phone to try to do an interview. And I have a great guest with me today, Amy Davies. Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself before we dive into things?
Sure. So, Amy Davies, I worked in the corporate world for 15 years. I was in research, so I say studying people. And I had a curiosity about what was going on with the corporate world. And in speaking to a lot of people about their careers, started getting really interested in how do we manage a successful career when we keep losing and changing jobs? There's so much flux right now. So I wrote this book. It's called A Spark in the Dark, Illuminating Your Path to a Brilliant Career in a Reorg World. And it's all about that. So how do we take control of our careers when everything around us is changing and evolving and moving so quickly? How do we make sure that we are in charge of what happens to us? In our parents' generation, it used to be you join a company and
Forever.
they take care. Exactly.
Yep.
And they'd take care of you. They'd get you training. They'd get you the promotions if you had high potential. I know my father spent 30 years with the same employer. And then we looked to these parents for advice. And I say, well, they're very good at giving us advice to handle specific work situations.
Yeah.
That they are not as good at helping us manage our overall career. So this book was really written for a generation of people who are in a very different situation.
Right. Okay. Good. So now I actually see people here. So Marianne's
Sure.
here. So just some logistics. Okay. So I'm here every day, normally at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and every Wednesday I normally have my Wisdom Wednesday interview with somebody that's an expert in the field or is a thought leader and things like that. The reason we're doing it today versus tomorrow is tomorrow is Eid, which is a big celebration for Muslims around the world. So I'm out with my family. I'll be not here tomorrow. You guys can all work. I'll have fun, but I'm going to be actually having a good time eating the entire day. So that's my day tomorrow. So we're interviewing today. Now, if you're joining us, let us know where you're from. Tell us comment below where you're from. Yes, there's going to be more buffering today because the Wi-Fi is weak. So I apologize for that. Vinay's mentioning that. But Marianne, Vinay, and Chris are already here. Hassan's here. There's going to be buffering, guys. So apologize. The Wi-Fi is weak. That's what the problems we have. But don't worry about it. You can still listen to the entire replay after we're done, too. Okay, so there will be a bit of buffering. Let us know where you're from. Comment below. Are you from Africa, Asia, South America, North America, Australia? Also, ask questions, comment, tag people, share us on your page. You want to get people part of this conversation, and we're very excited to share this content, talk about this. The topic today is about dealing with your fears around job loss and making sure how do you manage that? How do you make sure you don't let that overwhelm you? How do you take control and manage your career versus fearing for your job?
Right.
That's really what we're going to talk about today. All right. So what I'll do right now is people are here. So Mike's here. Good morning, Marianne. Abby's here. Okay, a lot of people. Aisha's here from Lahore, Pakistan. So we have people all over the world, which is awesome. I love this. So thanks so much for joining us. Amy also has this really awesome book, which is called A Spark in the Dark. That's very catchy. It rhymes. I like that. Is that the darkness of being in a job?
It's the darkness of being somewhere you're not sure, and you're not sure where you are, and trying to navigate your way through.
The darkness of my cubicle. Oh
right.
my gosh.
But it's only a spark because really it's up to us to figure it out.
Okay,
So.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I guess the best way to start really, Amy, is why don't you tell us a bit more about start talking about this topic and then start diving into sharing the content in terms of what you think is really important for everyone out there to understand. And I'll track the comments.
Sure. So you and I originally talked about me coming on this today, I was saying that it's really about, am I going to lose my job? And I say to people nowadays, you should always be prepared to lose your job. Yeah. You should always be what I call reorg ready. That means having your LinkedIn ready and updated. It means having your resume ready and updated at all times. It also means networking as though you're unemployed. I find so many people get into jobs, they get comfortable, and they get complacent. Yeah. And they shut down their networks, they don't meet people, they don't follow up, and then they're in a position where they need a job, and they have to reach out to people they might have let go over the years. So it's so much easier if you just keep your network going. It's not hard, especially today in the world of social media,
Sure.
to keep up. So that's a lot of what I write about. I also talk about knowing who you are. And I know this is something you work on, Bobby,
Sure.
on personal branding.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Know who you are and what you want to convey to the world. So there's an exercise in the book. There's many ways to do this, right? But there's an exercise in the book that I call Illuminate. And it's all about being one consistent person.
Mm-hmm,
I
sure.
tried for a long time to be a different person at work than I was at home, than I was with my friends, and I was with my parents. And life just opened up and became so much easier when I just decided to be one person and that same consistent person everywhere.
And what I can add to that is that, personal branding allows you to find clarity, right, around who you are, and also focus on what you want to spend your time doing. And so what you're talking about there is clarity and focus, which I think is so important for everyone's career.
Right, absolutely. And knowing, and I do talk about that in the book as well, it's about finding your North Star and then heading towards it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're not going to know exactly what that is, but I knew throughout my career that one day I wanted to work on the other side of the business and do things like this. So it made me kind of treat everyone as though they were a prospective reader or client. Even when I had a great corporate job and I had a lot of people coming to me, or I was working with suppliers. It's not the reason. I believe in treating people really well, no matter what the situation, but it really helped me aim towards that goal and get further faster when I was ready to take the leap.
Can you tell us a bit more about the story behind maybe what sparked this idea, and maybe a time of your time where you were struggling?
Sure. Oh, yes. I had so many times. The most difficult thing that I found over the course of my career was working with difficult workplace personalities. Yeah. And you just feel, I've talked to so many people who feel they've been bullied at work, or I say it's abuse, really.
Yeah, it is.
We don't often
We covered that topic last week, actually.
Oh, you did? I missed that.
Bullying in the workplace.
Right.
We talked about that. Yeah.
Well, I write about it in the book, too, and I refer to a criminal psychologist named Robert Hare, who wrote a book called Without Conscience, which I also reference. And he says he studied criminal psychology his entire career, and he says that 4 to 5% of the North American population are non-murderous psychopaths.
Wow.
Yes, and we just think that these are things that only happen in films and that we're not going to really confront these people in real life, but these are people who will never change, and they're affecting our careers every day, and we try to show up differently, we try to treat them differently, and it's really toxic situation, and it causes us a lot of angst, and it's someone who is never going to change, and it's not your fault if you're in that situation. I think it's really important for people to know. But in the book,
it's not your fault.
It isn't. It really isn't. It's that person's fault. And I talk in the book about the reconnaissance mission of the bully and being aware of it, because you're always going to be a target, but you don't have to be a victim.
Now, how did you get around that and figure out for yourself that, like, what kind of support did you use to get there?
Well, just awareness is the first key.
Okay.
So knowing what you're dealing with and that you cannot change this behavior, and not taking it personally, which is so hard. And then making sure that if you're in that situation, people say don't leave a bad manager. I don't agree. If you're in a situation and your business is not going to make a change, leave the situation. Yeah. Because that company does not deserve you.
Yeah. I mean, my philosophy has always been about, it's called accept, change, or exit.
Right.
So
that's a good one.
So you either you try to change the situation for the better, and if that doesn't work, then you can accept it. It might be horrible, I would accept temporarily for really bad situations, but ultimately you also may want to exit.
Yes.
So that's whatever situation you have, you either change it, or you accept it, or you exit.
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. And some companies are really receptive to this type of feedback.
Face ID.
Uh-oh.
Okay, look at that.
I'll look.
No, it's not working.
It's not working. It doesn't recognize me.
I lost it.
I will. Sorry, everyone.
I lost the feed, so that's
there.
fine. Okay, good. There you are. Okay, so, and again, people, there's Yuli's from India, Marcos from Toronto, Josh from Hamilton. Definitely Anderson's in here from Toronto. People are having trouble with the feed. Apologize, guys. The Wi-Fi here is a little bit low, so there's going to be some buffering. But if you're patient, there's great content here. Amy knows her stuff. She's got a great book, great insights, and of course you can always look at the replay afterwards. Make sure you come back and watch the replay. Anything else you want to talk about in terms of?
Yeah, well, I would just say that one of the things that's really going to help us in our career nowadays is to look at our job, our current job, as separate from our overall career. It's certainly a part of it, but it's like a chapter in a book. It's not the entire book, right?
Okay.
So realizing that your job is temporary, it's someone else's definition of who you are, and it's something you may be doing to get paid, because we all need to get paid, we all need money, but your career is your life's work. It's who you know yourself to be. And
it's your legacy. What's
right,
your legacy
and it's
going to be?
exactly, and it's permanent. So if you're in a difficult situation or in somewhere that doesn't just fit right, or if you're thinking you want to do something else, just know that your job is not necessarily a representation of who you are in the long term, and you have the power to change that if you do the right thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people struggle with the fear and doubt of the unknown. You know, they get complacent with, you know, their job or their career. And the other big thing that I think a lot of people struggle with is that they create a narrative that kind of holds them in. They say, well, you know, my job's terrible, but thank goodness, you know, I've got income and I've got a wife and kids, and I'm very grateful for that. But, you know, that doesn't mean you can't try to improve things for the better. Like, you know, your job, you spend a lot of time in your job. Like, a third of your life, you might as well make it good and fulfilling as opposed to something that's kind of miserable and that you're resigned to doing. So don't get stuck in those narratives. Don't be swayed by those fears and doubts. You can change. You can make a difference.
Right. And I would also say, if you're planning your career, oops, we just have to do this one more time.
I keep losing it so fast.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
As you're planning your career, what I would say is think about what you want to do on a Tuesday. You know, people say, what do you want to be doing on a Saturday afternoon? That's great. Or where is your ultimate place to go on holiday? You're not going to be holidaying for 80% of your life. You're going to be working for 80% of your life. So when you think about your North Star, think about, what do I want to wake up and be doing, and that would excite me on a Tuesday. Right. And today's Tuesday.
Oh,
so
today's Tuesday. There you go. It's not Wisdom Wednesday. It's Thoughtful Tuesday.
Thoughtful Tuesday.
That's what we're doing. Okay, cool. And you know, I'm a big proponent of personal branding. So I mean, I love what you're talking about in terms of personal branding. You know, what are your thoughts on that in terms of how personal branding affects you know, what people are trying to do here?
Well, it really is. I don't see it as being something we don't know who we are necessarily. We really have to think through who we are and be that same person at every touch point. So whether you're posting on Facebook, whether you're putting something up on Twitter, or whether you're having a conversation like we are today, be someone who is consistent. Because if, for instance, you're applying for a job and the recruiter calls 3 different people and they all say 3 different things about you, it's also going to be difficult for them to really get a sense of who you are. But whenever I've been called for references for people in my network, there's a sigh of relief from the recruiter, and they're like, oh, I've been hearing this about this person consistently. So really think about what are those things, and sometimes they're things that we aspire to be. So I talk about poise, right? That if you're sloppy and disorganized, maybe poise is too far advanced. It's something to aim towards, but start with being calm. Be that person who creates calm in a meeting, for instance.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like that idea of consistency, because if everyone thinks that you're completely different wherever you are, then you're not going to create a strong brand when they're getting references. I think that's really interesting. I mean, the truth is, you know, our brand is, we're the same person that we really want to be inside, and so it's important to understand what that is. I always encourage everybody to, you know, understand and dive into the personal brand to really figure that stuff out, because that knowledge is empowering, right? To understand what it is, because then you know how people perceive you, and you can play to your strengths. And if your brand is something like, you know, you're always late, like you know, always late Bobby, how do you change that? It actually takes a lot of work, but you have to consistently be on time or early 6 to 13 times statistically before your brand changes to not being late Bobby anymore. So it's important to even know what your brand is, so that you don't if you have negative aspects, you can start to shift those on your own.
And one of the things that I talk about in the book that I'm really surprised we don't talk more about in our business world, our business life, is something called imprinting. Imprinting. So if you imprint in a certain way, when you meet someone, it's a highly receptive period. So they're building a belief system about you in that time. And once a belief system has been built, it's very difficult to change.
Yes, I agree.
So if you're late is a good example. If you're late, you're not just going to be perceived as being late, you're going to be perceived, if it's an imprinting moment, a highly receptive period when someone's meeting you for the first time, that you're in fact unreliable. So I talk about starting a new job, I talk about imprinting and belief systems. We think, oh, they say it's really takes a first impression is so meaningful, but no one really talks about why and how difficult it is to change. So that's why I said, knowing yourself is so important, and being that one consistent person and imprinting positively. There's also another phenomenon called actor-observer bias. So if I do something wrong, I blame what I've done wrong on the circumstances. So let's say I'm late. I blame the traffic, I blame the subway. If you're late, I blame you, even though we have the exact same circumstances. So that's actor-observer bias. I'm blaming you for things you do wrong, and I'm blaming the circumstances on things
now,
I do wrong.
Are these psychological theories?
Yes.
Or are they? Okay. Okay, a few things here. So Arjun says, hi Amy, you're the best. Okay, that's nice.
Thank you.
Angela says, know who you are and what you want to convey to the world. Absolutely. Arjun also says he worked at AGI from 2007 to 2018. Is AGI, that's the company?
I worked at AGI, and I have to say, such a great team there. Really have fond memories.
And if you're liking what Amy's talking about and what we're chatting about here, again, clap, heart, light bulb, whatever that face is, put that there. Tag people below to be part of the conversation. Share this on your own pages and tag people to get them to see the replay afterwards, because again, we're having a really good conversation here about your job. Now, one question I have for you then is, what are some of the most common fears that people have around their jobs?
One of the big fears nowadays is job loss.
Job loss, okay.
For sure, because we're seeing so many, and I don't know if anyone who's watching right now is either going through a reorg at work or has gone through a reorg or suffered a job loss. The problem is we set our lives up financially for when we have great jobs and things are going well, and then we kind of risk everything when that doesn't work out. So job loss is a huge fear. I have talked to a lot of people who are just afraid of not realizing their potential. And if you want to realize your potential, the other thing, I don't know if you have something similar, but I have a free goal setting template. I'm happy to send to anyone who's interested, because if you really want to succeed with your career and I set goals. That's how I did this. Upside down. Right side up. That's how I wrote this book. Make the goals really small. The very first goal I set was to be more positive. And look and give feedback when I saw people in public places or in service roles doing really nice things for me or doing their job really well. I'd actually write a letter to their employer with positive feedback. I'd find out their name. And I had a real negative time before that, and I was always seeing negative, and the world suddenly changed.
Wow.
I saw all the good things around me happening. So all that to say, if you're not in the practice of setting goals, set very easy goals for yourself to start off.
Excellent. And I just want to address that everyone's mentioning the buffering and lagging, so the stream's not better when you restart. So apologies for that. What I would recommend is, the Wi-Fi here is not as strong as we want it to be, so that's why it's doing that. So what I would suggest is, again, if you have questions or comments or specific things you want Amy to address, this will be saved on my profile, of course, and then we can go back and watch the entire video. And then Amy and I can go in and start commenting on things and answering questions as well.
And if there's a day you want me to come back, I'm happy to do that. For sure.
With a better Wi-Fi, for sure.
And I just want to say, too, that we're in the Monster office today. Our very kind hosts. And there's many ways to take control of your career, so I certainly don't say this is the only one, but they've launched an app that you can get, and you can post your resume to it. And that's one way to continue to be active. I've actually started to use it, so if you're familiar with Tinder, it's very similar to that.
Like job swipe left, swipe left?
Yeah, it's a simple, it geo-targets you, so you can put all kinds of settings on there. So thank you very much to Monster for having us today.
And Marianne says 4 to 5% of North American population are non-murderous psychopaths. Holy smokes, how is it possible? I've worked for so many of them.
Oh no.
You know what's funny? I will tell you too, like I've had a history of horrible bosses. I probably like 3 or 4 in a row, and I could never catch a break with a good boss. And they were really awful for me. And for me, the boss makes a big difference. If I don't have a boss who champions me or supports me, is always antagonizing me or whatever, it's probably the biggest stress for me. So whenever I look for a new job, I always say, who do I report to, because I want to know who that person is before I accept a new job.
And you know what to look for?
What's that?
Confidence.
Confidence.
Yes,
In
confidence.
what, in the boss or
A confident person. You want to
Okay.
work for a confident person.
versus insecure? I see what you
Yes,
mean. Okay.
the kinds of people, I get very upset. People email me and they talk about the type of person who's going to be a bad boss. They say, oh, it's a women or it's men, or it's not about
Right.
gender.
Yeah.
It's not even about experience. It's really about a person who is confident. So
Right.
look for confidence in the person that you're interviewing
Yeah,
with.
that's a very good point. I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
that some of the boss I had, they got there and were there for many years because I think the Peter principle, they got to the level of their competence. And
Right.
so I think there was insecurity there for sure. One thing I want to mention too to everybody is, going back to your point about, planning your career that you may actually lose your job.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that, because it's so important, because one of the things I can tell you, I have a friend, she was a rock star in her organization. She had a high level, she had a director role, superstar, making good money. They loved her. She worked crazy long hours on top of it, representing them at events, and she did and she loved her work. So
Yeah.
everything. Good job, great title, loved her work, worked many hours, the company loved her, but she got let go. And she was shocked. She's
Right.
like, what? Why did they let her go? At the end of the day, like, no matter how good a company is, and I talk about this a lot, no matter how, the greatest companies value people second.
Right.
Because, they value different things, but number one is always profitability. So if there's money at stake, they're going to let you go. Even
Right.
if you're amazing, even if you love your job, even if everyone loves you, even if you work beyond the call of duty, they still may let you go. So it's important to understand that. Like, don't get caught in that trap where you think that, okay, I'm even though I'm amazing and everyone loves me, I'm set.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And the other thing to do is, if you have been let go, really think about why that might have happened, and not because of you. I wrote an article. My website's www.reorgworld.com, and I've got a blog where I talk about how it will help us to react if we've been affected by a reorg,
Right.
and how those decisions are made. And it's exactly like you said. It's not about the individual. Often it's a consulting firm or someone who's never met you that's making the decision about
Right.
whether you stay or go.
Yeah, and so I think that's why it's so important for us to manage our careers in a
Yes.
way that is going to benefit us. I mean, take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
Like, take care of yourself, take care of your health, take care of your family. Focus on you first, because that's going to be the most important. And the other thing I'll throw in a little tip here is, when you're trying to manage your career, make sure you track every single thing you've been doing, because guaranteed your manager and HR is tracking all that stuff too.
Sure.
So you need to be able to defend yourself when things happen. Because I remember I had this really awkward meeting with my boss, and they started to lay out all the stuff that I'm doing wrong, and I didn't have the right planning for it, and that was bad. And I was like, after that, I was like, let me, because they even laid out stuff that I thought was unfair.
Right.
Right? And I was like, I wish I had planned better.
Yeah.
So then I kept a list of everything that I've done. And anytime there was an issue, I say, here's how I resolved it, here's what happened, so I could explain it.
Yes.
Because they have a report on you, so you have to create your own report.
So my recommendation, and I talk about it in A Spark in the Dark as well, is to create a happy file for yourself.
Happy file.
And a
okay.
happy file is all the accolades you've been given. If you've worked
Sure.
on a project, save those emails, save your background and things that you've done well and that have worked out well. I also recommend, and going back to the bullies, is you save a big bad wolf file.
A big bad wolf
Yes,
file.
and you save the emails from this bully. You don't know what you'll need them for, but one of the things you can use them for years later is, if you ever question your behavior, you ever question your own reaction, go back to those emails as a reminder that it wasn't your fault.
Right. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I actually have a folder in my email called motivators.
Sure.
So anytime I get
Can
a
I
nice,
be in that folder now?
Sure. Well, if you send me a nice email, like, it basically has all the nice emails that I've gotten over the years, and I
that's
keep it there, and I
great.
can look at. Okay, you
I
did a
love
good
that.
job. Yeah, it just keeps me.
Yeah.
If I need a boost, I go
Yeah.
to my motivators thing,
That's
which is
amazing.
good. All right, so we haven't had very many questions on the feed today, and I understand that there's the issues with the connection. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do is, any questions you have about fear of losing your job, managing your career, anything that would be helpful to you that Amy can answer, comment below after you watch the replay or after you look at this again, and let us know, and we will do our best to answer them and tag people to bring them to the conversation. That'd be great.
Sure.
All right. Anything else you want to tell people in terms of where they can find you, where they can connect with you and stuff?
Sure. So I have a website. It's called www.reorgworld.com.
Okay.
You can connect with me there. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I often will post resources on there, so you can check that out. this week on Thursday, I'll be at the Jobs in GTA HR conference and job fair.
Okay.
So it's free entry for job seekers.
Okay.
So come see me there. I'll have books, and I'm giving 3 talks that day.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be a great day. And that's about it, I think. I'd love to connect with people on LinkedIn. Happy to answer questions.
All right. Well.
And thank you for having me, and this is for you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. You haven't mentioned your book once yet, so...
No, I haven't mentioned it at all. No, not at all.
That's good. So, again, this is the Power Connection broadcast for LinkedIn Live. My name is Bobby Umar. I'm here with Amy Davies. And, we do a broadcast every day, 8:30 a.m. Today it was a little bit miffed because of the internet connection started late. Tomorrow I'm not on because I'm celebrating Eid, but every Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m., join us. Every Wednesday we have our Wisdom Wednesday where we interview somebody with some great expertise and with awesome books and content. And I hope you continue to join us for the broadcast, and hopefully we'll see you again. I'll see you again on Thursday, and maybe Amy can join in another time as well.
Thanks very much. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to shut this off. Here we go. And let's see here.